My name is Greg Massi, and this is episode 3 of The Color of Air, a podcast about the musical journey. I want to thank you for tuning in again. As always, you can find us on the web at www.colorofair.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/colorofairpodcast or on Twitter at The Color of Air. And if you have any questions or comments or you want to just interact with the podcast, please send us an email to colorofairpodcast@gmail.com. Hopefully, those of you who have found us are either getting us through the website or through iTunes. And if you do get us through iTunes, please make sure to rate and review. I'm going to interrupt myself with some breaking news. After I recorded the intro to this podcast, I received a wonderful email from the folks over at Stitcher, and our podcast, The Color of Air, has been accepted and can now be streamed and played on Stitcher. So if you have the Stitcher app for your phone, you can find us there, or you can go to Stitcher.com. But basically, if you don't like using iTunes, which some people don't, you can find us over on Stitcher, and you can rate and review us there as well. So, thanks, and back to the program. Anyway, it's a kind of a weird weather day here in Marlborough, Massachusetts, where the Ret Con Recordings studios are. I think there's a tornado warning, but it hasn't come anywhere near us. But for the time being, it's very hot, very humid. I've got the AC off. Got the fan off so they don't interfere with the recording of the intro. So I'll try to make this short and sweet. Just a few minutes ago on the Color of Air Facebook, I announced the official cocktail of the Color of Air, which is my take on a Manhattan. Now, the classic Manhattan, which is a drink that I do enjoy, is 2 parts bourbon, 1 part sweet vermouth. And you could put a cherry in or bitters, but, just the basic Manhattan is always my favorite. And so I've been messing around lately with using vodka instead of bourbon. So you get 2 parts, I've been using Grey Goose. So 2 parts Grey Goose vodka, 1 part sweet vermouth. You get a vodka Manhattan. And since I don't really see much people, that didn't sound right. Since I don't see very many people talking about it on the web, I'm just going to go ahead and name it The Color of Air. That's our official cocktail. Please drink responsibly. I've only had one, so I'm not, wasted here recording this. But I'm just going to go ahead and call that our official cocktail for right now. Anyway, on to the podcast, or onto the interview, I should rather say. So my guest this week is Nick Hudson, who's a guy I met a few years ago. I tell the story a little more in depth during the podcast, but I met him through Facebook just because he was a fan of my prior musical work, and just on a whim, I decided to listen to his music based on the fact that he was posting about it so much. And, I was blown away. At the time, the album that he was promoting was called My Antique Son. And you could find all of these on his Bandcamp site, which he talks about a little bit later on in the podcast interview. But, since then, we've become very good friends over the internet. We talk about, we've bonded over a lot of different music that we both like. And he's also invited me to play on his last couple releases. So on his albums, Letters to the Dead, and his most recent album, Ganymede in a State of War, I've been able to contribute a little guitar parts here and there to a couple songs. It's not a full-time thing. I'm not his, main guitar player, but just to do a couple quick parts for him was incredibly fun. He writes really awesome songs. He's got an incredible voice. Kind of like the first time I heard it, I thought it was kind of like a Rufus Wainwright-y voice. But although not as lazy sounding, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but for those of you who know Rufus Wainwright's voice, his voice can be, it sounds very effortless. It sounds as if he's almost kind of drunk while he's singing. but it still comes out beautiful. Nick's is a little similar to that, but with a little more precision, I'd say. And he can do a whole variety of different styles, and he always is trying something new. And so, as a result, it's really, really cool. And I think during the first intro I recorded for this podcast, I mentioned something about, how I'm just kind of recording this with what I have around the house. I don't have really expensive, amazing podcasting equipment here. But that's kind of a thing that has always been the case with me throughout the years, is that whenever it comes to recording or trying to get a musical idea on tape, me and a lot of the other people in my life, we really just had what we had. We didn't have expensive recording gear when we were in high school. We used boom boxes, and then when we finally got a 4-track recorder, a tape 4-track recorder, which is super expensive, was super expensive back then, and is very obsolete now. We just made the best recordings possible with the limited technology we had at our hands. And that's a lesson that I think is important for a lot of younger musicians, because I think a lot of people get wrapped up with, well, I'll make an album when I can afford to go into a $500 an hour studio or $50 an hour or whatever. And, I have or if I'm going to record at home, well, I need, a MacBook Pro, and I need this super expensive preamp, and I need these amazing mics. And a lot of people will get so wrapped up in the technology and the hardware that's involved with recording that they forget, the essence of recording is just making the best sound you can. And, it's an important lesson. And the reason why I bring it up is because Nick Hudson kind of embodies that. As he'll talk about, he's been making albums in his house, in his bedroom, for years now. And, it started off, he'll say, he just, was recording all of his instruments with one microphone and, making entire albums that way until, he was able to get, a really nice microphone that was gifted to him, for which he's eternally lucky, and I'm incredibly jealous. But, he was able to take that and, step up his recording game at home. And so, like I said, you make the best with what you have. And, he's a good example. His albums are all self-produced, self-recorded, self-mixed, very contained, or self-contained, I guess is the right word to put it. But, there's always something really cool on his records. He's able to get really magical performances out of himself and the people he works with. And he's a very collaborative person. There's a million different people he's collaborated with on the last few albums. And, it's just a really inspirational thing. And then in addition to being an awesome musician, an awesome singer, an awesome songwriter, he's also a filmmaker. He went to school for film. And so, he'll talk a little bit about his film projects as well. So, and then besides all of that, which make him a prolific, creative guy, he's just a really fun, nice guy to have a conversation with. And it was a lot of fun talking with him on the phone, on Skype, I guess. And I look forward to having him back on. And I also look forward to working with him again. He did a vocal track for a Balisette song. And, I look forward to working with him more in the future. Well, enough of my blabbering. Let's get on to the music and then the interview. So I've got a few tracks from Nick Hudson to play you throughout the course of the podcast. And stick around after the interview because we're going to debut a song from his newly completed album, Ganymede in a State of War, which looks like isn't coming out till September, according to the interview. And we're going to be debuting the world premiere, fresh off the presses, the final mastered version of A Convoluted Man. So stick around after the interview to hear that. In the meantime, I'm going to introduce you to Nick's music with a track off of his album A Day Without Comfort. And this song is called Gnosis.
Dressed as a swastika, I took to the room, armed only with ideology and proof, and threw the ground at me with unparalleled force. Slammed my face into the tarmac that held no remorse. I came across a Gnostic saint, caravan of care and trench coat and war paint. Where's the benefit package that keeps me slack? Wind up wife to watch my back. Plastic Christ to suckle at my breast. Do not resuscitate, tattooed on my chest. Smeared a smile across his face. Hair as fine as rotting lace. No kill can crack the hate lips. Hissing air of this abyss. Into the coffin, pull the duvet over my head. Pillow crested with roses, baked of bloodied bread. To rise reincarnated with the yeast of hopeful sleep, running through veins that might be sated. With sober thoughts not to creep.
How's that?
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah, cool. Okay, brilliant. How you doing?
Hello.
Yeah, nice to hear you. I know.
Good morning. I mean, good afternoon. Sorry.
Yeah, good morning. Yeah. How was breakfast?
Oh, it was delicious.
Excellent.
I think I had a little too much coffee, so I'll try to keep my keep myself calm.
It'll be a really quick interview, yeah.
I know. Yeah, let's go through it.
Yeah, brilliant. So when I made this record. I'll just shut the door in case my flatmate comes back. Hang on a second. Yeah, I just took a long walk, and it's really beautiful in Brighton today. It's incredibly sunny. Just really, really gorgeous.
Oh, okay. Are you feeling better now? Are you ready for your
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. I'm prone to allergies. I'm very sensitive. So.
You're an artist, of course.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh no, the pain.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, I didn't really have any written out questions,
Cool.
because I mean, um, my goal is always to try to make it as natural of a conversation as
Yeah,
possible.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I was gonna ask because I don't even know this. What's your history?
Okay,
I
right.
mean, I know it's kind of a loaded question, but I feel like I didn't really I wasn't really aware of the stuff that you did until like a few years ago. So I wasn't sure if you were involved in like bands early on or if this is kind of a more recent thing.
No, it's I've sort of been doing music all my life. I started playing piano when I was 6, and then had lessons and quit those and some sort of reactionary teenage strop,
Yeah.
at sort of 17 or something. And I was in a weird punk ska cover band then, where you actually made money out of music because you were a function band basically. Imagine that. And that was just when I was in the sixth form with some school friends. And then after that, I went to uni and didn't really do any music for a while. Sort of formed a noise duo called the Berlin Wall of Sound, but that was about it. And then it was about 10 years ago that I started writing songs and then just continued writing songs and yeah, it started flowing. I mean, there was a point when I was writing about 6 a day. It was ridiculous. Yeah, I don't really know where it came from. I didn't really intend to be a songwriter ever, really. I never really intended to be a singer either, but I think it was moving back home after university. It was a sort of terrible regression, circumstantially, and sent me into a bit of a depression. And I was working in a pub, and I bought a laptop and bought a microphone, and then I've been listening to Jandek and stuff like that, and thinking,
Hmm.
oh right, there's DIY, sort of self-produced, sort of highly prolific, deeply confessional or not stuff is really interesting, and so I started writing almost sort of parodic, deep south sort of folk songs, southern gothic folk songs in a way, and then it became a lot more sincere and direct, and then
Yeah.
I just started putting together this album cycle called the Phoenix Diaries. The seven albums. I don't know if you've heard any of that or not, but
Um,
it's,
I don't know if I have actually. Is that on your Bandcamp?
there's one on there. Polymath
Oh.
Luke was the second one, but that's completely insane. I sent some to Toby at some point, and it's kind of like psychotic studio edited sort of sound collage stuff.
Oh, okay.
But
Now,
yeah, the others are more like songs. I mean, they're not. They're all very lo-fi, but they're. Yeah, so I did loads of those. I did like 7 albums in 4 years or something stupid like that. But and yeah, and then started the stuff that you probably are aware of from sort of Territories of Descent onwards.
yep.
Started that about 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, 2009. I put that one out, and that's when I guess I started sort of taking them more seriously as sort of cohesive or hopefully cohesive albums. Um,
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because the first time I kind of heard your stuff was, well, obviously, a lot of people add me on Facebook because of my association with KO Dot,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's interesting, and it's kind of it makes Facebook a very interesting experience for me because I've gotten to see for the last 5 years these people's lives kind of in a voyeuristic kind of way
It
because
does that.
I
Yeah.
don't really interact with a lot of them personally, uh,
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but but I mean I'm sure they're nice,
Don't be so certain.
yeah. Well, it's weird too because like some of them started off when they were like teenagers, so I'm watching this like progression of when uh they're in their angsty teenage phase and bitching about their parents on Facebook, and I'm just kind
Yeah,
of like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
oh geez, I'm like, give it 10 years, you'll be fine, don't worry.
I know. Yeah, yeah, yeah. With hindsight, my friend.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm just like, oh geez, but but what I did notice is that some of them do have music and they do, and so I think you had added me, and through my daily thing, I kept saying you kept talking about my antique son, and
Yeah, 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 yeah.
I think it was just one day I was just like, I don't really listen to anybody say, let me check out this Nick Hudson guy. Let's see what it is. And I was blown away. I mean, I think I told you that. I mean, I was completely blown away by what I heard.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and just in terms of, well, I think, I mean, obviously, I think your songs are really good, but I think your voice was the first thing that grabbed me. I was just like, holy
holy crap. So it's funny you say you never actually thought about being a singer. I mean, I think your voice was like really the first thing that grabbed me. I was like, okay, this makes me want to listen to more, and and listening to more and getting more into, and then listening more to the structure of the songs and everything like
Yeah,
that. I
yeah.
mean, um,
A
so
lot
I
of
mean,
Massi is really complex structurally. I mean, it's almost every single song is in a different genre or a different cross-pollination of genres.
yes,
It seems, it took me 2 years again to make that one. It's pretty dense, isn't
it
it?
is. Yeah. But I mean, but what I liked was, I mean, like, and I thought the production on it was really amazing. Now, and you do all that at home, correct, for the most part?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on that one, there's a few little sort of special features or secret weapons in that I did. There's that track, "The Burning Sea," where I do the sort of chest voice throat singing to open, and I recorded the vocals for that in St Mary's Church, where we occasionally do concerts. And I just took my Neumann down there and my laptop and just recorded myself doing throat singing in this church. And that was pretty amazing fun. And also recorded the church organ as well in there. So, but yeah, most of it was all sort of mixed at home and largely recorded at home. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was so I've noticed a theme throughout, that you've always kind of approached your things with your projects with a very kind of conceptual idea. Like, I mean, they're concept albums, but I feel like I mean, I don't know if that's a loaded question, but but or a fair assessment. But would you say that you approach each project as a kind of a concept album, like you're trying to
Yeah,
tell a story of some
yeah,
sort?
completely. To me, they're kind of. I think about it very theatrically, and I think of them as like a sort of curated space in a way.
Okay.
I'm a big Robert Wilson fan. Do you know Robert Wilson, the avant-garde New York theatre maker?
No, I'm not very aware of him.
It's,
No.
Einstein on the Beach with Philip Glass is probably his most well regarded and celebrated piece. But yeah, I mean, he's a huge influence on the way I think and process information artistically, I suppose, as well. But yeah, so I mean, for instance, Territories was a breakup album, but was also set in Poland at the sort of at the end of the war and stuff like that, And so there's, and then My Antique Son was an exploration of a sort of subjective lineage of what I call Gnostic saints. So going back from like sort of Heliogabalus, the sort of teenage anarchist emperor of Rome, passing through like Blake and Rimbaud and Baudelaire and up to sort of Coyle and John Balance and stuff like that. And it was almost chronological, but yeah. And then Aleister Crowley's in there quite a bit as well. And yeah, so I do, yeah. I mean, I can't really help myself. I guess it's how I sort of justify them as being records. It's how I overcompensate for like fear of failing at cohesion,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how much does trying to keep a story together drive you crazy when you're in the songwriting process?
I find that bit quite easy. It's the to be honest, I don't find any of it particularly stressful or anxiety making. It's when hard drives break midway through.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That's things like that just really, really fuck you off, isn't it? I mean,
Yes. Yeah.
I'd nearly finished My Antique Son, and it was almost a very different record, and then my hard drive crashed, and I lost half of it. So
Oh, jeez.
rather than attempt to recreate it, I continued just intuitively, and it became the record that it is. So yeah,
Okay.
I managed to salvage some of it. I can send you some of the outtakes from My Antique Son, actually. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love to hear that.
It's all R&B,
Well, yeah, I mean, I think you could do that. I kind of feel that you have this innate ability to kind of transcend a lot of different genres and, like you said, the cross pollination. I mean, I feel that's kind of something you're pretty good at.
Thank you.
Like
It's fun. I just get restless, and I really enjoy just going. Okay, well, let's attempt to do this. Like I did that Prince cover recently as well, just to see if I could. To some extent, I can, but yeah, it's just a good way to learn as well, isn't it, about how things are produced? So.
Oh yeah, of course, and that actually kind of leads me to something else because. So kind of the kind of idea of this podcast, which I'm slowly developing through the interviews. So you're only the second one, so this is still kind of a rough guinea pig-ish process. So
Cool. Yeah.
I hope you don't mind being the guinea pig.
No, no.
Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but so
I
the
just have a
idea.
picture of myself in a guinea pig onesie sitting here in my room.
Uh, well, I'm glad we're not on video chat, or this is.
I promise you I'm not. Yeah.
But so no, the idea is, I kind of wanted to explore with people the idea of like a musical journey,
Okay.
meaning not. It's just based on something I've experienced in my own personal life the last 10 years or so, where it's you know the development of becoming the musician I always wanted to
Uh-huh.
become,
Yeah.
and the kind of things that influence that in terms of influences and things like that. So what can you think back? What was the kind of a defining moment for you in your youth that kind of led you to start experimenting with music to begin
I
with?
suppose earliest on, it was genuinely my grandmother having a piano, a really beautiful piano, and we used to go and visit her in Nottingham, in the East Midlands, and I would sit at it and pick out melodies and things, and then they were like, "Oh, you seem to have some affinity with this," and so they bought me a piano for my 6th birthday. Then I started having lessons and sort of raced through the grades. It just seemed to suit me. And then in parallel with that, my auntie, who died in '89, she was in a band called Room 101,
Hmm.
which were kind of a bit sort of Banshees-esque. It occurs to me in retrospect. Um, yeah, really sort of quite shrieky post-punk stuff. And John Peel and Billy Bragg were fans and all this, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. My auntie's a rock star, and she used to turn up from gigs at the house to come and visit us in like a sort of torn wedding dress, like years before Courtney Love or anything, like this sort of torn, stained wedding dress with like ferocious eye makeup on. I was like, wow, my auntie's insane. This is brilliant. So that got me thinking about bands and like, yeah, I guess and also about how it is something one can pursue,
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there's sort of glass ceiling thing, and then what did I do? I got a little sampler and started using it to multi-track stuff, and then did the sort of classic tape to tape bouncing thing,
Uh huh. Yes,
Just-
I remember it very well.
I quite like doing that. Actually.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, it was a lot of fun. I still have a bunch
yeah.
of my old multi-track tapes.
I would love to hear them. We should do an exchange. That'd be funny.
Oh yeah, I can try. I can send you my very first album that I made in 1994.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, yeah,
It's really just me riffing, like literally just like playing my guitar and riffing like incoherently. I pulled it out I don't know, like few months ago, and I was listening to it. And I'm like, there is no semblance of a song here. This is really just me like trying to emulate Metallica.
amazing, amazing.
But
And then
yeah.
I got into what was it? Oh yeah, here it is. Here's like a primary influence. I was about what would I be? In '95 I would be 13 or 14, and the first CD I ever bought was Mr. Bungle's Disco Volante,
Oh, okay.
and so it drove my parents absolutely crazy. Obviously, whereas I was just having a great time. I was like, "Oh, this is the best thing I've ever heard," and that's when it occurred to me that it was like, "Oh my god, this is actually kind of like compositional rock music in a way." I was like, "This is," I didn't have a word or a phrase for it at the time, but I was like, "Oh, this is like the classical music of our time. This is pretty revolutionary, groundbreaking stuff." And so I get quite obsessive and monomaniacal, and when I would play Disco Volante sort of 4 times a day, really, really loud, just sitting in my room, and got to sort of learn all the textures and every sort of nuance of it pretty meticulously, and yeah, and then discovered like more of their affiliated stuff, and that got me really, really excited about how one doesn't need to be constrained by this arbitrary corset of genre or whatever, and how just like prompted me to experiment loads more, really.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
And
it's a
then, oh, sorry.
record, isn't it?
And then, well, you were saying so that you kind of put music away for a little while you were at university, correct?
Yeah, I was just getting wasted. Yeah,
As we all do.
no, I got addicted to Grand Theft Auto and lost a year, so I didn't. And then
You're like, I didn't produce any music, but I can carjacked with the best of them now.
Absolutely, I was too busy running over Harry Krishnas in tents and flamethrowing prostitutes. I had
Well, but was there any one? Was there any particular thing you heard, or is it just more a general feeling in your life that kind of brought you back to actually then getting more into the songwriting aspect? I mean, was there anything you heard that made you think, oh, this is something I could probably do, or was it just more?
I never stopped listening as voraciously. I mean, I was always listening. I was always messing around with guitars and things, but I didn't really perform or anything. And I still play piano as and when, but it was kind of like a sort of busking thing just to get pints in pubs, really. But I still started training myself up, and I continued to train myself up as a pianist. But I didn't really sing at all until I moved back home, and then, as I said, I went a bit sort of schizoid and despondent, and like I'd written these songs and there's nobody else around to sing them, so I sort of figured, well, I guess I'll have to sing them then. And then the more I wrote, the more complex they got, and so the more demanding it was to sing. So I ended up training myself up a bit. Then I moved down to Brighton, and again the songs got more and more elaborate and complex with sort of more expansive melodies. I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna have to get singing lessons now. So yeah, it's just sort of a default sort of recognition that nobody else was going to sing them, so I probably ought to become okay at it.
Oh, okay. Well, you developed really well.
Well, thanks a lot.
It actually sounds like you. It sounds like you're a pretty well trained singer, but you're entirely self taught. Then I'm taking it then.
No, I had like 6 months of training just to ensure that I wasn't likely to fuck up my voice, and I did.
Okay.
6 months with this steely old harridan called Daphne, who she was like 80 or something even then. This was about 8 years ago. I used to go once a week, and it was really, really severe training, but really useful. I mean, she worked with Maria Callas at Covent Garden Opera and stuff like this, and so I learned a few bits, and then the rest of it I've just sort of trained myself by listening to people like Meredith Monk and Diamanda Glass and Patton as well, to a degree, and just emulating and exploring and trying to figure out how they make those noises and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's kind of become, in a way, I think my primary instrument. I enjoy it the most of any of the things that I play.
Oh, okay.
I really enjoy singing, yeah.
Well, and one thing I was going to bring up too, because another thing I enjoy talking to people about is gear.
Oh right. Okay.
And I have a feeling that maybe you would consider it. Would you consider probably your most important piece of gear that wonderful microphone that was gifted to you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
the
That's why My Antique Son sounds light years ahead of Territories of Descent production-wise. Territories of Descent was all recorded on a 58.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everything, like even the harps and the violins.
Yeah. It's the only microphone I have.
Exactly, yeah. It was crazy, which is why it took about a year to mix, to make it sound remotely listenable. Whereas My Antique Son, I then came into this Neumann U89, which, as I probably mentioned to you, this Australian friend of mine stole from a recording studio in Sydney, because he was in love with KD Lang, who had just done a session into it, so he stole the microphone, presumably to clone KD Lang from the fiddle would have embedded itself in the mesh, and then and then in fact, I was like, oh god, I'm really lacking technically. I don't know how I'm going to record this thing I have in my head. He's like, oh, do you need a better microphone, honey? I was like, yeah, actually. He's like, I don't know if it's any good or not. And then he produced this Neumann U89, which I then Googled and was like, oh, right, Abbey Road, £2,000. Yeah, nice, that'll do.
Yeah.
So, it's an amazing mic. And, for instance, when I'm recording violins on that, I don't even need to EQ them very much. I don't even need to take the top end down,
Mm-hmm.
Well, depending on the player, of course. But, yeah, it's a hell of a thing.
And as you did Territories and then My Antique Son, did you feel that you were also growing as kind of an engineer, a mixer? Because you do all the mixing yourself, correct, on your album?
Yeah.
So it is a very self-contained kind of process for you.
Yeah, it's a little cottage industry. Yeah, it's weird, But I mean, I didn't really. I'm completely self-taught as a producer engineer, for better or worse, and. So it didn't occur to me that people would send it off to be mixed by somebody else. It really didn't. It was just out of naivety, really, that I ended up doing everything myself. But now it seems to work. So, and yeah, around that time as well, I was aware that actually I was getting a greater fluency in a studio environment, because my antique son, I'm quite proud of. I can still listen to it, which is more than we said for a lot of things I've made. So,
Yeah. And well, and that kind of brings me to the next point. So I'm hopefully going in some sort of chronological order, but so you come back into it. You start with with the Phoenix stuff, and then the territories. You come to My Antique Son, where like you said, you kind of updated your technological
yeah,
capabilities, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
in your producing abilities, and that brings me to uh, letters
Oh
from
yeah, yeah, yeah.
is it letters from the dead or letters to the dead.
Let us do that. Yeah,
Okay, sorry, I
that's cool.
I forgot to look ahead of
There's another
time.
one in between called A Day Without Comfort as well, which I don't know if you've
Oh,
heard.
geez, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's cool. No, I just
I keep forgetting how prolific you are because I felt like you're like, oh, I got another album out. Really?
yeah, I'm just hemorrhaging albums. It's like
Yeah.
I've actually made one in the time that we've been doing this Skype call. So
Oh, gee. Well, awesome. All right. Well, just send it to me afterwards. I'll play on it.
absolutely, yeah. No,
But
so A Day Without Comfort was because my antique son was so sprawling and had about 13 musicians on it. I
Mhm.
then wanted to make a solo record because I tend to sort of flip between poles really.
Okay.
So I made a really sort of insular solo record. That was about the curious and sort of extraordinary biography of a really good friend of mine called John, but he calls himself Bacchus, and with good reason. He's the most alarming hedonist I ever met in my life. And but yeah, it talks about his suicide attempt and also like his political um, assaults in a way. I mean, he was a stockbroker in the city, a really precocious one, in his early 20s, and but he ended it as an anarchist. He hoped to genuinely bring down the economy and really screw up a few companies, and he actually managed to screw up a few companies. Then got rumbled and had to self-exile to Thailand, where he hid for a few years under a different name and stuff. Like,
Oh my God.
I know, yeah. So yeah, I thought he deserved an album. So it kind of explores like my political concerns in a way, or some of them, through the sort of refracted through his life story and my perception of it, and sort of fragments of dialogue that we've had and stuff. And he wrote a foreword for it as well. Yeah, and it talks about his suicide attempt as well when he was 18 and stuff. So it's it's a quite a sort of intimate little record, that one.
Oh yeah.
But he's fascinating. He's a hell of a creature. He really is.
And was he pleased with the result? Did he?
Yeah, really flattered. He really likes it actually. Yeah, which
Oh,
is
good.
well, thank God.
Yes. I wrote this song for you. Really? Oh.
Statler and Waldorf. I
Yeah.
hate it.
Yeah. No. Fuck. um.
It's like
Oh.
somebody gives you a sort of bouquet of turds and expects a smile.
And so well.
Sorry, I've never said bouquet of turds before. I'm quite happy with that.
Next album is over.
That's Nick Hudson and the Bouquet of Turds.
Yeah, I think that works. That works. And we'll get to the band aspect too, because I do have questions about that too. But the reason why I was kind of jumping over other stuff to get to letters was also because that was also the time when you went back to school for film, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I went to did an MA in filmmaking. Yeah. Over the course of 2 years. Yeah.
And so with letters, that was also an exploration of the kind of theatrical,
Absolutely.
at the more or the more visual aspect of your music, correct?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. The idea with letters was to because I did a lot of production heavy stuff.
Hmm.
So in My Antique Son and A Day Like Comfort, there was loads of compression, lots of post production and program stuff, and actually not program stuff. None of it was programmed, but yeah, basically lots of post production. So I wanted to make a record that was predominantly acoustic instruments with very little compression, very little post production. Real pianos, everything, and also basically the sort of parallel concept was to take a narrative and refract it through as many media as I could and see how they all interacted and see what sort of kind of like meta theatrical kind of perspective, or you know, it's kind of prismatic, I suppose, is the way I see it. And yeah, so I wanted it to be a film, a multimedia opera, you know, an album on vinyl and stuff, and a libretto book, which I still haven't got around to doing, but I will do at some point. And yeah, so that was really interesting to do. It was also exhausting. This is quite an endeavour to obviously like project manage all of these different manifestations of something fairly elaborate like that. So yeah, it was a nightmare, frankly, but we got it done. So yeah.
Right, and also, I mean, but it was also as hard work as it was. You actually did. I mean, do you feel that it actually helped you uh, kind of bring together the stuff you had learned about in film school? Did it actually kind of
Oh, yeah,
help?
absolutely. Yeah. It's very it's a much more consciously image-based record than the previous ones, because people have often told me that my music's incredibly cinematic and stuff.
It
But
is.
that's I suppose that's from being like raised on Ennio Morricone and things like that, and you know. Um, but but yeah, this was a lot more consciously image-based, yeah, for sure. And then, you know, obviously, literally so in that we made the film and used the music as the sole audio component to the film and stuff. But I had more of a straight-up narrative than the others as well. There's kind of um, a much more considered and sort of concrete chronology to it.
Hmm.
So it lent itself easier to a sort of narrative film, or kind of narrative. It jumps around in time, but it, you know, it has a story that's tangible at least. You know, so yeah. No, the film was really fun to make. Actually, really fun. It was Chris Purdy, who I got in touch with after he did a video for Stuart of Asper, which was brilliant. And I was like, this is wonderful. And I knew I wanted to work on a film with somebody. And I approached Chris, and we had lots of meetings in London, and I explained the narrative. And we went through it and thought about how we could manifest this film on a virtually no budget. And it was a real pleasure. We just had like 3 weekends in Brighton over the course of a summer, and it was enormous fun. And everybody was incredibly, you know, just generous with their time and their spirit and and talents, and you know, and it was kind of a sort of improvised collaborative affair as well, you know, because we didn't storyboard any of it. And yeah, it was really good fun to do, and I'm quite proud of it, to be honest. It's flawed, but it's there's some nice images in it, and we had a premiere in Brighton at the Duke of York's, which is one of the oldest cinemas in the UK still functioning, and yeah, we had a premiere with red carpet and lots of champagne and a photographer, and we all got in our finery, and it was a good little pageant, you know. It was it was fun.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing the pictures and at least the video that I have seen. I think I forget if I've seen the whole thing yet, or if but the images that I did see from it look beautiful. I mean, I thought you did a really good. You and Chris did a really good job with that.
Thank you. Yeah, no, thanks a lot.
And, and well, what I was gonna say is, I mean, and you've also done some other kind of short films too, correct? Like, is that something you've been doing as much?
A couple. I mean, I don't have access to the equipment since my MA finished, so so not so much currently. And also, I don't know. I mean, I'm working on a film at the moment, but that's quite different. It's actually kind of already been filmed. Because it's my grandmother passed away in January, and oh, and I have her piano now. The one that I first played when I was 6 is now in my flat.
Oh, okay.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I'll Snapchat it to you later. No, and so I'm making a film at the moment, which is refilmed footage shot on 8mm stock by my granddad in the 50s of my dad and his siblings as a kid, and at that point the family was kind of like super wealthy. It's all gone now, but at that point they were virtually millionaires. They were kind of entrepreneurial sort of construction people and architects and engineers and stuff, and so it's really interesting footage. You can see my grandmother at age 26 or something, and her younger sister Shirley, who looks like Marilyn Monroe, and they look like the Brat Pack and stuff. So I'm refilming all of that, and I'm interviewing all of the surviving relatives about that period in the family history, and yeah, and sort of putting together this kind of like semi-abstract kind of documentary on them also. Yeah. That's
okay.
that's going to be fun. Just as a sort of gift to my dad as well, because he lost his mother in January, so I thought it'd be a nice thing to do. So, but
Huh.
yeah,
Okay, well that's good to hear. And okay, so that allows you to kind of explore the film, the editing and all that other stuff without actually having to worry about having the cameras.
no, absolutely, yeah. It's really, really, really interesting as well. The footage just has this incredible luster to it, and it's it's amateurly shot as well. And I'm going to loop sections, reverse sections, and slow sections down and stuff, and just treat it more like structural cinema.
Okay.
Sort of stand brackage style. So, I mean, not like to completely distort the image so it doesn't actually resemble anything, but just think of it texturally as well as narratively. So, yeah, it's
Okay.
it's going to be fun. We'll see.
All right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Um, uh, yeah, because I mean, I have to say, like, of a lot of the musicians I'm acquainted with, I mean, you're probably one of the most prolific in terms of, I mean, not just in terms of the music, but yeah, I mean, in terms of exploring the cinema and things like that, and yeah, I just always feel like you always have some new project or some new thing. You're like, I think, didn't you have like a pop kind of techno pop thing you did last year with a friend of
Well,
yours?
that's kind of like some of my paid freelance work. It's a really nice position to be in. I mean, it's not hugely lucrative, but it's really fun, and it is, it's better than not being paid for music. And
Yeah.
so I get to, yeah, I get to. There's a singer who writes decent lyrics and has a good voice and is strong with melodies, but can't really play any instruments. So I got called in and hired to sort of co-compose, co-arrange, and co-produce this full-on Pet Shop Boys New Order style pop music with her. And yeah, which means I get to sit in quite nice studios and like tell engineers what to do, and I just improvise with lots of instruments and stuff, and it's really fun, and it's a really odd collaboration, but I enjoy it, and it's an interesting discipline to sort of wrap your mind around, making pop music and sort of hook-filled stuff. It's yeah, but I don't really treat it like it's different from anything else, really, in a way. It's just like how's the best way to go from A to B in this particular scenario.
Hmm.
Even though the results sound completely different to anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
I'll send you some actually. There is some on a SoundCloud somewhere.
Yeah, I think that's where I heard it the first time.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I just get I don't want to risk getting bored, because when I get bored, I'm prone to probably becoming quite depressed, and it's difficult to wrestle myself out of that. So I try and fill up my days, and it's fun. I get sort of mentally, spiritually restless, and always. I mean, I've got about 6 things on the go at the moment. I'm not staging a play in the autumn as well.
Oh my God.
I'm also writing Julian Assange the musical. I didn't tell you, did I?
No. Let me hear about that.
Yeah, it's called That Can Be Assange. Yeah, it's got danceable numbers like Sing a Songe of Sixpence, and yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. It's all set inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London, and so yeah, but that's kind of on the back burner. I'm doing serious projects at the moment.
Well, that's that's cool. And
Yeah.
so one thing I was gonna kind of also diverge into is so I remember having this conversation with you last year, and this is gonna segue into the new stuff you're doing.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
but you said I remember you very excitedly told me that you were writing your version of Bowie's Hunky Dory.
Oh right, is that what I said? Yeah.
And I was immediately like, okay, I'm listening. Because I know that in the last few years, because I think that's the other thing is I think you and I kind of really bonded over some music, because I mean we both
Yeah.
were really into Lou Reed's Berlin,
Absolutely. That was it. Yeah.
and then I know I've been going through a Bowie phase for about a few years now.
I never really invested that much time, like concentrated time in listening to him until the album came out last year. And I mean, I've been aware of a lot of his stuff and very much loved a load of it. But it's only like in the last year when we had like the V&A exhibition retrospective and the next day came out, I was like, hang on, this guy's absolutely like fucking mind blowing.
Yeah.
And Yeah, so then with my like usual maniacal zeal, I sort of leapt into his entire back catalogue and like, swallowed all of that up. And I think that's when I turned around to you and said like, right, let's do this.
Yeah. Well, but the interesting thing was, I mean, not that I was expecting you were gonna create this kind of, Bowie sounding album, but I thought more about when you said that you're like, okay, this is just gonna be, something new you're trying, and just from the get go when you started sending me the demos of what will ultimately become, and again, you're gonna have to refresh me on the name of the album.
Yeah, Ganymede in a State of War.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I put Ganymede on a lot of, like, oh, Ganymede, I gotta ask him about that. But just from, as you were sending me the progress of the different songs, I mean, it really is, there is a Bowie feel to it without actually sounding like you're copying or anything like that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to, people to get that impression, but it really felt like a different energy and vibe kind of came through.
Sure. Yeah. It's
And
also I tend to do something a little more populist in terms, as far as I am able, and it's that sort of just like putting sort of experimental sound sources and arrangements and stuff within more conventional song form. I wanted to see what would happen if I did that as well, and it's really really good fun to do actually. I didn't really allow myself to sort of go completely off the handle with this one,
Yeah. Well, and then the thing that I noticed too immediately, I mean, because I've always, I probably should just rename this podcast the Greg Massi Compliment Hour, because I feel like everybody I interview, I'm just gonna be like, hey, you remember when you did this? This is really awesome. But
time compliment hour.
yeah, the compliment hour. Yeah, it's like anybody who calls in is just gonna get complimented for an hour. It'll make them feel better. They'll leave with a smile on their face. Go,
madam, what is that scent you're wearing? It's delightful.
Yeah.
Say, have you lost weight?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just start pulling people off the street and be like, "Here, sit down, just get complimented for an hour, and we'll."
Yeah. You can get a grant to do that. I'm sure. You should do that.
I'm sure. Yeah, I know. Turn into a movie. Yeah. But what I was saying was, I've always really liked your lyrics. Like, I feel like, the way you, the way you phrase the certain things, the ideas you're trying to get across. I mean, for example, I know, and maybe it's because, I played on it, so I had a lot more experience listening to it, but I remember that, like, letter number 1 always, like blew me away, because it was just like this deeply personal and this deeply personal story, a letter from a father to his son, and I just remember being like floored emotionally, because that's something, because as much as I kind of get through my history kind of lumped into the whole avant-garde kind of scene, at the end of the day, what really gets me is not a technical thing, or how weird is this chord, or whatever. What gets me is, what emotion are you trying to convey with your music?
That's really all that matters, isn't it?
It is, and to me, and to other people, I'm sure too. But that was always something that, and so I think when I heard that, I was like, I'm not saying I cried.
Well, it makes me really sad. I mean, that whole record makes me really sad, actually. Because it's a really tragic narrative, and I really laboured over those lyrics. I mean, there were about sort of 30 drafts before I settled on that one. Because if you're going to attempt to articulate such complicated emotional relationships, you really better do it properly. Because it was a big risk. It could have fallen flat on its arse. So I really, really, really sort of laboured over them and chiselled away and heavily edited and let them sort of percolate and then reassess. And it was But thank you. I'm glad you think they work.
of the sea with dignity. Life owes you fun. Visit my antique son. Come ashore, ride the surf, come to earth. Come claim your self-esteem, reignite the dream that was torn and left you forlorn. I'm glad you were born. I can't apologize for your mother's eyes, for her cool neglect of her care. I wish I were there. Dear phantom foe, you left a great hole in the map of my way. It's okay, it's okay. My absent one, the years you've been gone have rendered me split, and I hope that's not it. Here in my room I think of the woman house you for 9 long moons without love. Here at my antique desk, I am truly blessed to have you exist on right on the sun. I wish I was there at birth. I wish I were there at birth. I wish I was there. Wish I was there. Wish I was
Yeah, it works. And now that what I'm getting to with this too is that, so I mean that story was, I mean that's not based so much on your real life. That's an entirely invented narrative. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's completely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say because you obviously have a pretty good relationship with your parents.
I had to reassure them about all of that as well. I mean,
It's not about you.
they really like the record, but I did have to say to them before I let them listen to it. I was like, I just want you to know this is fiction, okay? Yeah, so don't like project any sort of despair or concern over our relationship when you listen to it. I was like,
They're fine.
they're used
They're a
to it
happy.
now.
The Hudsons are a happy family.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what I was gonna lead to is that with the Ganymede songs, I feel like you did kind of move into a much more personal narrative, and obviously, I'm not. I don't want to take you to an area you're not comfortable discussing, but
No, it's fine. Yeah, it's weird that this 5 album cycle, right, begins and ends with breakup records. It's like, it's just this kind of unconscious symmetry to it, Yeah, I was on a relationship for 4 years and it ended last year, and so inevitably, quickly had a lot of material to turn into songs, and it's helped a lot actually in processing the whole sort of melee of emotions that occur in the fallout of such a thing, and then also, I mean, there are about 10 other songs that haven't made it onto the final record that were all from that period, but in fact, I can't really bring myself to sing them or look at them, So, so that's why I didn't want to make a completely pessimistic, bitter record, So that's why there's this song there, "The Truth in Three Chords," which you've heard. I wrote that and I thought, hang on, this sort of articulates, I think, all I really want to or need to publicly about this.
yeah.
And so that's why the others sort of fell by the wayside, and that one stands alone, really, as
Well, and it's not even just about the breakup, but I mean, I also think there's the song about your grandmother on that as well, correct?
Yeah, right, which you never got to hear. I wrote and recorded, there's a mix of it.
I think I heard it, the John D.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is recorded, but she never got to hear it. It was recorded.
Oh, yeah, that's right. She never got to hear it, yeah.
I told her all about it, and I was like, I've written a song about the times we used to spend walking around Hatfield Park Estate when I was a kid, and you took me looking for wolves and snakes and things, and she's like, oh, that's nice, dear. I'd love to hear it, and she never got a chance to hear it. So at the wake, or at the funeral, I'd handwritten the lyrics on a piece of really nice floral handmade paper, and I rolled it into a scroll and put it inside a ribbon, and it went into the crematorium with her. So.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
nice. That's wonderful.
Yeah, but no, I'm really happy with that song actually. Yeah, I wanted to write a proper folk song.
Oh, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
but okay, so there's a lot of different aspects on it in the lyrics, but there is an actual sort of is there kind of a story to it, or because I think you also said it has something to do with anarchist political beliefs as well.
Oh right, yeah. No, it's, there's a David Cameron triptych on it. It just got to the point where it almost became impossible not to write politicized, assaultive lyrics, just because the state of the government over here is so corrosive and poisonous right now. So yeah, I've written this David Cameron triptych and put it in the middle as like a sort of a narco equivalent to sort of the Ninth Wave movement, part of Hounds of Love, and yeah, they're really, really vicious, aggressive, damning lyrics, and I'm very happy with them.
That's the way it'll be.
And yeah. And there's this one called Cut Piece on there actually. Yeah, it's kind of just a huge protest record. It's a protest against all manner of things, romantically, politically.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a song called Cut Piece on there, which is it's the second of the David Cameron triptych in the sequence, I think. And that's the one where I put a bit out on Facebook and Twitter and asked as many people as possible to record themselves saying the line "strip him of power and lop off his head."
Oh, okay.
Which is then layered over this big proggy outro. And
yeah, that's the one I haven't heard yet.
Oh, you haven't heard it? It sounds absolutely terrifying. They're really chilling. But I'm not literally calling for the beheading of David Cameron, but it wouldn't be an awful thing, Yeah, but yeah, that's a fun one to do.
Okay.
Uh,
Now, I mean, did you? Is there any plan for any kind of? I know you're working on the film for your grandmother right now. I mean, is there any plan to kind of do any visual stuff to complement that, or did you kind of
yeah, absolutely.
exhaust?
Yeah, in
Oh, okay.
fact, I've had one video through already, or a couple are done actually. Chris Purdy and I have made a video for "I'm Not Looking for Love," which features me as a zombie.
Oh
Ostensibly.
yeah, yeah, I saw that.
Yeah,
Well, I saw the picture.
that was so much fun with like a kilo of Waitrose liver, which I pull out of my viscera. And then there's Michael Salerno, who is sort of behind the Kiddie Punk enterprise and based out of Paris. It's kind of a sort of um, publishing and filmmaking and record label imprint, and it's kind of like luxury DIY stuff. It's really beautiful, and he put out A Day Without Comfort actually. And he also made a video for Idiot Song from My Antique Son, where he made this child float, and it's an incredible video. So I asked him to do one for a song of this record, and he's done a really astonishing, quite contentious, I would say, video for Homunculus, which I'll send to you at some point. But it's it's going to turn some heads. Um, and there's a video currently being edited for the Ganymede song as well,
Hmm.
which is me marauding around a graveyard in crushed red velvet, like some sort of beamed-in man who fell to earth, kind of like alien creature. So yeah, I'm just going to keep making as many videos as possible, I think, for this one. So
Okay. Oh,
yeah,
that's okay. So basically, you didn't get shied away from it from all the work you put into letters.
Oh no, not at all. I just didn't want to make a feature for a while, and also I don't have the. I don't know. I think. Yeah, I'm quite enjoying just like outsourcing that to other directors at the moment. It's kind of fun.
Okay.
Well, I'm doing the album art myself, and that's in progress and looking quite cool.
Oh, okay. Cool. Oh, we'll look forward to that too. And when do you expect to have a projected release, or what is the projected release date
I
for?
would say maybe September. I think
Okay.
maybe earlier. We'll see. I'm working with a few people, and we really want to get the like release strategy together and robust, and and really mapped out so that it doesn't sink. Because I need the money really.
That's what it all comes down
Yeah,
to.
that's what it is. So, yeah, I'm not actually an artist at all. I'm a ruthless capitalist, just manipulating tropes. Yeah. uh, no, I just want to do it properly, as much as we possibly can, given it's probably going to be a sort of elaborate self-release kind of campaign. But also, I mean, it's the first time I really attempted to do anything remotely populist, and so I figured maybe there is some crossover potential. Maybe somebody might want to hear it, and so.
Somebody might want to give me money.
Yeah, exactly, yeah, and also, everybody's worked really, really hard on it. I mean, yourself especially, it's like there's some amazing collaborations on this, and it's been one of the sort of loveliest album-making processes I've ever engaged in so far, and so I want to see that the world gets to hear it, as a sort of to do honour to the people who have kindly got involved and stuff as well. So
Well, and I find that I mean or collaborations has really been something you've been doing a lot the last couple of years too. I mean, I feel like that you're always meeting new artists and musicians and friends, and then being like, let's do something together.
yeah, totally, yeah. Well, I think it keeps you sharp, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
I mean, your output's pretty diverse, isn't it? Yeah, I really enjoy it. For a while I was like doing some sort of improv shows with a poet, which was really good fun, just putting a piano through loads of delay pedals and stuff. And yeah, I don't know. As I said, I get restless, And the nice thing is occasionally getting asked to do like one-off tracks with people. I really enjoy that. There's 2 tracks that I did vocals for on an album that's coming out soon, and it's this guy David, who creates all manner of like really kind of fucked up, noisy electro pop stuff. But yeah, he basically put an album together called Joins, where he created all the beats and all the sound textures, and then like outsourced them to various different vocalists, and said basically do what you want. So I wrote a couple of like screamy suicide like narrative pieces, and just sort of just like yelled them through. Yeah, seriously, yeah. It's kind of horrible and brutal, and then there's there's a song which I called what's it called? Close to You by the Carpenters. That's it. Yeah. I called it Close to You by the Carpenters by Nick Hudson, and it's me like screaming the lyrics of that over this kind of like slab of white noise. I'm really looking forward to that coming out.
Well, that's actually really funny because it does remind me of. I remember this one time, and hopefully he won't mind me admitting this, but there was a time when I was still in KO where I forget if it was. I think it was the second KO album we were still working on, and Toby came up with the idea. He's like, "What if we called it John Lennon's Imagine by KO
Brilliant. I don't know why people don't do that. You know? I wanted to call my band OK Computer at one point and put out an album called Radiohead. You know.
Yeah. So even though obviously it sounded our stuff sounded nothing like John Lennon's Imagine, but
well, this doesn't sound anything like the Carpenters. You know.
Exactly. Yeah.
It sounds like Amanda Glass, like being attacked by a bus. It's just.
Well, and you also don't have an eating disorder, correct? You don't. You're not starving yourself. I feel
like I've got a drinking disorder today, but apart from that.
Well, I mean, I think we all have that to some extent.
Yeah.
I've had to slow down a little bit myself.
I know, right?
We're not. I have to keep reminding myself I'm not 20 years old anymore. I'm not 20.
No, same. Yeah, the hangovers are getting more grave.
Oh, they're gonna get worse too. Let me kind of warn you. You're a few years behind me. They're gonna get a little worse in a couple years. As soon as I hit 35, everything's been shitting the bed in my physical form. I don't know why. I wake up. I woke up from a gig the other day, and my neck hurt for 2 days straight. Usually my headbanging injuries were pretty resolved within a day, but no, 2 days of neck pain. My knees hurt. I didn't feel it at the time. At the time, I was like, "Yeah, rock and roll."
I know.
And then the next 2 days, I'm like, I feel like I'm 80 years old.
It's really rough, isn't it? I know. I don't like this sort of this entropy thing. It can bugger off. I don't like it.
Yeah. Well,
this other project we have called Platform on the Ocean, that I may mention to you, which is this kind of like public interventional, en masse acoustic sound art project where you get loads of acoustic musicians to play sustained instruments in a architecturally resonant space. We're doing that around Brighton. We've done 2 so far.
Oh,
but on that one I'm playing viola. And I don't really play viola, but I mean I've got a decent bowing action. And but it basically we did like D major for 2 hours, right? And we got some really interesting footfall and traffic honking and trains going by over the top, and the acoustics were beautiful, and it sounds incredibly shamanic and transcendent and really odd, and there's like elements of the boredoms to it. It's really weird. I'll send you the SoundCloud.
Okay.
But yeah, we're hoping to do a lot more of these, or we will do a lot more of these, and we want to get a grant to go up to some caves and things. So I've spoken to Toby about that as well, and you should come along if we get a grant. There's this crystal cavern up in Scotland, in the Hebrides, called Fingal's Cave, and it's a crystal cavern with 5 seconds sustain acoustically, and so if you sing an arpeggio, you'll get a chord hanging in the air, basically. So yeah, we want to go do something up there. But talking about like injuries that you only recognise the day after, like playing viola for 2 hours, and then I woke up and I just couldn't move my neck. I was like, this is horrible.
Well, and I was gonna say too. I mean, if you're ever in the States too, you do realize. Have you heard about the room, like the quietest room in the world? That's in America. It's this. I don't know the science behind it, so I'm gonna probably butcher it. But the idea is that it's at such a decibel level, or negative decibel level, that when you go into the room, people will go mad after, because it's so quiet. You can actually hear
like the anechoic chamber.
Yeah, and it's like you hear the. What I've heard is that you actually hear the blood flowing through your veins, and it drives people insane.
Yeah, I've heard about these places. Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to sing in there and see what.
It really would. Yeah, it'd be really, really interesting. Yeah.
Well, when you're here on a tour, you can.
Let's do it. Let's go. Yeah.
Hopefully you won't go mad, because apparently the longest anybody's been able to sit in the room is like 40 minutes.
We can record the first Bouquet of Turds EP.
Yeah, and
It's interesting you mentioned that because we've mentioned Diamanda Galas a little bit here and there, and I think I read in interviews that as she was like initially exploring the sort of outer reaches of what a human could produce with the voice, I gather she used to like drop acid and sit in an anechoic chamber vocalizing. Like,
oh, oh my, oh my.
that's right.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I've heard things about getting into a what is it, the isolation
Yeah,
tanks
yeah.
and dropping acid or some sort of hallucinogenic and then going in there for a little while. I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be fun. Um, and so speaking of the bouquet of turds, but you've reassembled. You have a live band now that you're working with,
I do,
correct?
and I'm really excited. I mean, it's always, it's called the Academy of Sun, like it always has been. It's kind of like a sort of rotating membership.
Yeah,
And I suppose to an extent, Chaos kind of similar, isn't it? I suppose.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's cool. And the weird thing is actually there is one of the violinists. Oh yeah, it's already a 10-piece. I went a bit mental. I couldn't stop myself. So it's already a 10-piece band. But one of the violinists, Emma, I actually worked with in the first incarnation of the Academy of Sun like 8 years ago.
Hmm.
My first ever band in Brighton, and then didn't see her for like 7 years, and then it turned out last year we were neighbours and had been for like 2 years and didn't realise. So we got back in touch, and now she's sort of rejoined, and yeah, so we have quite. It's quite a broad set of instrumentation, and it's really fun. We got the first rehearsal with the drummer coming up on Tuesday, and the rehearsals are just awesome. They're really physical, driven, and focused, and like refreshingly egoless. It's all about just making the music sound awesome. It's yeah, I'm really enjoying it. It's really good fun. I can't wait to actually present it live.
And do you find, are you adding things to um because obviously the songs are going to sound a little bit different through a 10 piece as opposed to some of the more personal ones or the instrumentation you had on the albums. I mean, are you
Also, the inverse is true. I mean, some of those songs have like 100 tracks on them. Like Taxonomy is huge. That took me 3 months to mix, and so we've had to strip that back. I was like, will this be possible to do this song live? And actually, we've very quickly come up with a version that sounds awesome with this sort of set of instrumentation. So yeah, it's an interesting process. They're necessarily quite different arrangement-wise and texturally to the studio versions, but I don't, that happens, doesn't it? I suppose
it does, and it kind of speaks to the I mean, I know I've been told this many times by different people, but the sign of a good song is that you can play it acoustically and it will still resonate. And
well, we'll find out later because I've got a solo gig tonight where I'm going to do most
oh,
of them.
yeah, I'll get a message tomorrow. It's all wrong.
We'll have to record 2 endings to this interview. I was like,
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, but what I mean is that I mean, the version that's on the album is one thing, but what you're basically saying is that you're able to kind of take these songs, and it's actually kind of interesting from a songwriting, from a present musician standpoint, to be able to kind of create these kind of different versions of the same song and still have it bring out the same meaning. Correct?
Yeah, I find it endlessly fascinating, actually. Yeah, and it's really, really good fun because I mean, I was talking to a fellow songwriter friend yesterday, and actually, his studio songs are actually quite elaborately arranged, but he tends to play solo. And I was saying, do you find that when you play solo, you're actually, in a way, projecting the elaborate arrangements that you're hearing in your head? You're projecting that to the audience as you're playing solo, so and in the way that you sort of nuance the guitar playing or the piano playing, and you're feeling yourself. It's kind of like the orchestra is present but invisible. Yeah, you attempt to articulate the nuances and the expansiveness of the original arrangements with, very little, I suppose. It's an interesting process for sure. But I enjoy it. I actually quite enjoy doing solo stuff. I think after Letters of the Dead, I was exhausted, and so only played a handful of solo gigs. But it was fun because it wasn't very logistically heavy going.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, um, I guess this is actually a good spot to end the interview for now, because this is kind of where you're at now. Is we can expect the Ganymede album in September, hopefully. And for anybody who actually listens, who knows if anyone's going to listen to this podcast, first of all. But if there is anybody listening that's in or anywhere near the Brighton area of England, you should go see if you've got more gigs on the horizon.
Yeah, there will be some. Yeah, and it's pretty cool actually. We've got. I think we'll debut the Academy of Sun full ensemble in late June, and another gig in July, and I'll keep you posted about those.
Okay.
But yeah, and also we've got Matthew Seligman, he's this. Yeah, I mean but the listeners won't. But yeah, he was in the Soft Boys, and then he ended up after the Soft Boys disbanded in like '81, and he ended up working with Bowie on Absolute Beginners and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's involved in the record, playing bass on quite a few of the songs, and he's flying over from Japan in July, so we're going to probably end up doing a gig with him.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Really exciting, yeah.
That's wonderful.
He's a shit hot bassist as well, so
yeah,
really good fun,
Yeah. And so what I was also going to say is, so where can anybody discover everything there is to know about Nick Hudson musically or visually, or your Bandcamp, correct?
Yeah, the Bandcamp, yeah. Which is what? Is it Nick Hudson Industries? I think it is. Hang on a minute. I should know this stuff. Let me just produce my business card from my wallet. Hang on a second.
Oh, you have a business card?
Kind of. It's kind of parodic, yeah. Yeah, it's nickhudsonindustries.bandcamp.com.
Okay, so yeah, anybody should go listen to that. You can stream the audio, but then please buy it, because we're independent artists and we need money.
Yeah, I'm really getting bored of noodles,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I'll ever make back the amount of money I've put into the two Balisette records, so myself.
Yeah.
Luckily, I haven't gotten to noodles yet, but who knows if I think I could have probably bought a house with the amount of money that I've put in.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yes, so
That's very expensive, yeah.
yeah. So to anybody listening, we're independent musicians. We need money. Please buy it.
They're really inexpensive as well, and also the physical.
They are.
I might add, the vinyl of Letters is beautiful, and
I can speak to that. It is
pretty nice, So.
And it's amazing performances. And obviously Nick Hudson is an amazing musician, an amazing vocalist and songwriter, and so yes, everybody should buy Nick Hudson's music. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you, man.
And that's how we'll end it for now. But thanks for talking, Nick, taking time out to talk.
Really nice to talk to you. Yeah, really lovely.
Yeah.
And we should have like a sort of off the cuff chat as well at some point.
Oh yeah, totally. And then and I'm sure if this podcast kind of works, I'll have you back on again.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, thanks a lot. I really appreciate it, Greg. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, good luck at the gig tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. You take care.
All right, cool.
Take care, man. Bye bye.
It was the best of times. There was the first of time. Sustained by my past fingers, in the far of reaching soul. Million and 1% liquor. And we drank ourselves immortal in the Overlook Hotel. We used your trunk as a portal to a very pleasant hell. Aggro needs feeding, throw him some tripe while we all tap our beaks streaked with tiger stripes. And I'd hate to have to hate you, though my lashes are cast down. Too many mixed opinions, always turned out brown. All the beauty has been broken, snapped like tender bone. The callous was sprung open, spitting poison in our home. And I'm sad but slowly lighter for the blessing of these tears. And I hope we'll both burn brighter at the passing of these. Brothers and chupacabra mothers. I'm a consummate avant-gardener. I'm the hangman and the pardoner, and I've cut us from the gallows. While aggro lurks with fright on his face, and sunlight warms the shallows. The sunlight warms the shallows.